everybody, it is Romania Black, and we're on episode 20 of Yona of the Dawn. Oh my gosh, I am really excited because last episode was pretty good. We got a lot of info on Jaya. We got Hawk, poor Hawk. He's on the struggle bus for sure. I feel so badly for him because he is so torn in wanting to express his feelings to Yona, but he can't for many reasons, and it's just like, it's the first hint of like the crack breaking for Hawk, and I'm like, it has me so excited for the manga. So before we start, I have had a lot of people ask about the OVAs and the manga over the last couple episodes, and what my plan is that when episode 24 is over, I'm going to start the week after talking about volumes 1 through 8. I've just finished volume 4 a little while ago, so I still have to read 5, 6, 7, and 8, those volumes, which I'll probably be doing over the next couple weeks, reading those volumes. But I'm going to talk about volumes 1 through 8, and then we're going to react to volume 9 that week. And then from then on, we're going to react through the volumes as we go. So I'm going to go and read the manga as we do it. And when we get to the OVAs, I was thinking about this. Some people have talked about, like Modao Zushi. What I've done is I watched the donghua and then reacted to the chapters. So I'm probably going to put a feeler out on Patreon to see how everybody feels about it. But I'm thinking that when we get to the volumes where the OVA is at, when we get to that and we know those specific chapters, I can't decide if I want to watch the OVA first and then go back through the manga and read, or if I want to read the manga first and then watch the OVA afterwards. That's probably what I'm going to ask on Patreon as we get closer, because I think it's volume 12 and volume 18 that those OVAs take place in. And I want to watch the OVAs in the context of the volumes. I know some people were like, oh, you can watch the one OVA as soon as the anime is over. And I'm like, but I still want the context of the anime, because that's just how I am. I have to go in a list. So I want the context right. So I think that I'm going to react to the manga, and then as we get closer, then we'll react to the OVAs. And so I'll probably ask, a few weeks into reading the manga what everybody's thoughts are, but just to see which I do first. I'm good either way. I really just want to do what you all think would be better. It would be more entertaining. So I'm good either way, but that's my plan with the manga and the OVAs. I'm pretty excited because I'm glad the story is going to go on. When I saw episode 20 today, I was like, oh, we only have 5 episodes left. I'm like, no, we don't. We got like 30 volumes of manga, so it's fine. But we're like 25 volumes after this, because I think volume 34 just came out. So we've got plenty of manga to get through after this is over. But I'm pretty excited. I want to see this. Episode's called Chain of Courage, and we're going to be facing old Kumji, the guy that's in charge of all this mess, and Gigan and her pirate crew are going to face off against him and then retire afterwards. Nothing bad should happen in the meantime, right? And we still don't have our yellow dragon. I am glad I'm reading the manga too, because I feel like they're just going to introduce the yellow dragon and we're going to get like 2 seconds of screen time with him, and I'm going to be like, I want more. So that's always good too. But yeah, let's dive into this episode, shall we? I'm pretty excited. So we're going to watch episode 20 of Yona of the Dawn, and we're going to start that here in 3, 2, 1, and let's go. So this episode, this episode was so good. I love it. I love it. It's not one of my favorites, but it's a great setup episode. The last episode was amazing, and this episode, it just keeps building. It's building up. So we still have 4 episodes left, but we're still at least spending at least 1 or 2 episodes, I'm sure, doing the conflict of this ship and everything. I'm sure we're going to spend 1 or 2 episodes more on this. So again, I think we're going to get either the Yellow Dragon is aboard this ship that's coming up, and we're going to get introduced to him next, or he's going to show up right before the end of the season. And I'm like, no! I'm so glad we're reading the manga. I'm so glad, because there's so much set up in this episode for future things to come. And I know it's going to be expanded upon in the manga, which is exciting. But oh my gosh. As soon as she started talking about how the women were aboard the ship, Gigan was talking about how the women were aboard the ship and how can we secure the women's safety. In the back of my head, I was like, well, couldn't Yona maybe infiltrate the ship? And when she was wandering around at the beginning of the episode, when the one pirate's like, wouldn't it be faster to find their leader and secure him? And she's just sitting there thinking. And then when she's wandering around the start of the episode trying to find something to do, some way to help out, and there's nothing that she can really contribute, I was like, what if Yona sneaks aboard the ship as one of the women? Because she's pretty. And then it comes up, and it's like, okay, yep, everything. And I'm glad that Yona's going with her. Oh my gosh, I'm glad Yona's going with her. Because when she was like, I'll just go myself, I'm like, there's still, Yona has grown as a character so much over the course of this series, but she's not, you know, a flawless individual. She's going to make mistakes. And so I'm glad that she has someone with her so that if she slips up, someone's there to help her. And Yoon is our boy genius, so it makes sense that he's there too. But yeah, Gigan's like, we need more info. And so, gosh, I love this. I love that she takes out the knife that Gigan does, and she's like, we're going to beat up the authorities, we're going to beat up Kumji, and we're going to, you know, release the prisoners and save the town. And she's like, got the knife in there. And she's like, this time I'll fight with you. Stick with me until the end, boys. I'm so worried that Gigan's gonna die. I'm so worried she's gonna die. I don't want her to die. But there was vibes in this episode that was like one of those, like the night before the big battle, the night before things get bad. And I was like, I don't want Gigan to die. And they've not killed off any, other than King Il at the start of this series, they haven't killed off any main characters or even side characters. It's been a pretty deathless series so far, other than like maybe nameless guards. Well, there was the boy at the end that helped them escape, but other than those first 2 episodes, there's not really been any character death. And so I'm curious, it would make sense for Gigan to die at this point, sadly, because of what she represents to Yona, and we'll talk about that, and the rest of the pirates, but also to Jeha. Like, Jeha, I don't think would leave without her, so if she's gone, he's gonna stick with Yona. And I get bad vibes. I get red flags about Gigan dying. I don't want her to, but I just get those vibes, and it makes me sad, because I really like her character, especially in this episode, and especially with her and Yona's conversation. And so, yeah, then Yona says, you know, Gigan didn't want to fight, but she realizes that the only way to save these people and to help the town is to fight back against him. And they're the ones that have to do it, because they're the ones that aren't connected to the town. They're pirates. So if they fight Kumji, the rest of the town is going to be spared from getting any type of persecution, because it wasn't their fault. It was the pirates. And I like that Yona's like, they understand their captains and live with courage. And yeah, and she's like such an inspiration for Yona in that moment. Yona's like, I want to do something. And I love that line that Yona says, I want to see the real Awa once it's better. Once it's out from underneath this guy's rule, I want to see it. And that's such a curious thing, right? Because it ties to Suwon. Suwon, you could argue, wants to see the kingdom of Quokka once it's better. And that's arguably one of the reasons why Suwon wanted to become king, was to make it a better kingdom. And Yona kind of wants the same thing too. She wants to see the kingdom better too. So it's curious, we have these 2 seemingly opposing sides. We have Suwon, who doesn't know that Yona and Hawk are still alive. But we have 2 opposing sides. You have Suwon trying to make the kingdom better because that's what he wants. And you have Yona trying to make the kingdom better because that's what she wants. And it's like at some point in this series, those lines are going to converge. And I'm like, I am curious if it will get to a point where Yona and Suwon and Hawk realize they all want the same thing and what that's going to look like. Because we've talked about King Il in this episode too and brought up some things with him. It's just very curious that she wants to see the kingdom be better, but so does Suwon. So what do we do with that? And I'm looking back at the OP here, and in the OP, Il is at the very center of it. So that's interesting to me as well. But we'll talk about Hawk too. God, Hawk. Poor Hawk. This series just wants to just make him suffer. Make him suffer indeed. I'm so sad for Hawk in this episode. But yeah, so we cut back to everybody. Yona's trying to find something to do. And at first she tries to help out the crew pack the ship, but she's not strong enough. She doesn't have enough arm strength to lift up the bags. Kija's great for that because he has his dragon arm. I like in the one arm he just has the rope and the rest he has like 20 things. But again, and in this we see that Yona's in the shadows, right? She doesn't know what to do. And she's like, what can I do to help? And so then she goes to find Hawk, but Hawk is teaching them how to fight. And I like that Sheena is helping too. He's like doing the sword play, right? Because Sheena is a swordsman like Hawk. He would be able to help with that as well. And then I love that Hawk's like, well, I'll help you if you pay me money. And they're like, you're so mean. And it's like, you're a secret softie. And then she goes to find Yoon, and Yoon is helping the people, you know, heal. He's doing the medical work on them. And Yona's like, well, I can't help with that. So she just doesn't have a place to assist. And she's just wandering around aimlessly. And that's when Jeha stumbles across her. And I love this. I love that he's like a cat. He's like a cat that's slowly easing around. He's getting used to Yona in his space, right? And he blames it on the blood. He says, it's the blood's fault that I'm getting closer to you. And it's like, is it the blood's fault? Because here's the thing. He could have walked off. She wasn't looking at him or anything. He could have walked off, but he didn't. Instead, he was like, Yona-chan, and gets her attention. And he tells her he's going to scout the town. Won't you come with me? And she's just like, something that I can do. I can walk around and look at people. And yeah, and then I like that Hawk, this moment's interesting too, because Hawk sees Jaeha just flying away with Yona, and Hawk's like, And for a second, it's like, oh. And here's the thing. The last episode, we established that Hawk was a little nervous because Jaeha had said that he was going to try to woo Yona. And it was a joke. I don't think Jaeha was really trying to woo her, but Hawk was a little bit freaked out about that. So Hawk seeing them walk away, he's like, I think it's important that we see that little moment. And then, yeah, I'm with Yona. Yona is like me. As long as I feel safe, heights are okay. And Jaeha calls her out on that. He's like, well, I thought you didn't mind heights. I thought you minded heights. And she's like, well, yeah, as long as I feel safe, but I feel safe with you. It's like, She's like, I feel closer to you now. It's strange. And Jaeha's like, must be the dragon's blood. Can't be that we're developing a friendship. No, of course not. He's like, curse this infernal dragon blood. It's like, come on, Jaeha. You just don't want to admit it. You don't want to admit that you're becoming frenzies. So yeah. So then we find old Kumji. And yeah, Kumji seems like a terrible person. Not only because of the human trafficking, but because of how everyone in the entire city views him. They're all terrified of him. And yeah, this whole thing. Jaeha is so interesting because he's a womanizer. It's in his character. We established that with him taking Hawk to the brothel as a first date. Who does that? But Jaeha is so shameless. And he's kind of like Sanji, right? He's kind of like Sanji from One Piece. If you've ever watched One Piece, Jaeha reminds me a lot of Sanji. And that he loves women. He's a gentleman to women, but sometimes it comes across the wrong way. Like with this woman, he's like, oh, I knew you were a woman by your scent. And she's like, you're a pervert. And Yona's like, so this is what Hawk was talking about. So yeah, Jaeha reminds me a lot of Sanji. He's meaning to be gentlemanly, and he comes about it with a good heart and good intentions, but sometimes his communication just comes across a little creepy. And this woman's like, stranger danger, get away from me. And she's clearly freaked out because her friend was taken. And yeah, you can tell. And I like that Jaeha's like, don't worry, you'll be safe. We'll make sure of it. And then he has a great moment, just like Sanji in One Piece. He has this really great, kind moment. And then he ruins it by being like, hey, once we're all safe, can you get me your friend's number? It's like, Jaeha, no. And that's further proof that Yona's like, no, you're a little bit more sleazy than Hawk. But yeah, so we cut back to the pirate crew. And I love Yoon. I love Yoon making the pirate soup. I would totally be all for the pirate soup. It seems like gumbo. I'm all about that. I'd be all for it. And then poor Kija's like, what is this insect in my soup? And it's a crab, which it kind of makes sense. It has like the tear off limb like an insect would. So of course Kija would be like, this seems awful. And then you contrast that with Sheena, who just grew up basically surviving on whatever he could get. So he's like, I will eat anything. So that's cute that we have that little contrast. And then we have this one guy. And this was neat foreshadowing too. The one pirate says, this is really good, kid. Be my bride. And I like that Yoon's like, no. I like that Yoon says, I'm not marrying an unemployed bum. Being like, Yoon has finer tastes. Also, Yoon, maybe pansexual, does not care. But yeah, that should have been foreshadowing that Yoon was going to be the other choice to be the woman because he made the comment about the bride. And then he brings the soup and stuff to Hawk, or at least tells him that food's ready. And he brings him the soup. And Hawk is meanwhile waiting for Jaeha and Yona to get back. So yeah, and at first when he says, have you seen my honey? Of course, Hawk is like, nope, soup's really great. Warms you up. Don't want to talk about it. Don't want to talk about licking honey off of Yona's hands. Don't want to bring it up. And then he says, maybe the squirrel took it. I was waiting for Hawk to be like, probably, And then that's when, cut to Sheena, because we're talking about Ao, and Sheena notices that they're coming back. But Hawk was waiting for them to return. So Hawk's got it bad, right? And we're going to cut back to Hawk later in this episode, but Hawk is really in protect mode, and it's going to cut back to the cave. It's going to cut back to when they met Sheena, and he had the freak out in the cave thinking Yona was dead. Like, Hawk has some trauma from that, and he's trying to wrestle with these feelings he has for Yona, and we'll tie back to that at the end of the episode, but it's like, Hawk, my dude, I'm waiting for that confession. I am waiting, and this series is probably going to make me wait so long, but I'm waiting for it. I'm just waiting because it's starting to build. Like, last episode was the spark, right? It was the catalyst. It was like everything's going to start to build from here, I feel. I feel like Hawk is realizing, crap. Up until now, Hawk has resigned himself that him and Yona are just friends. It's like a sibling-like relationship. It's a bodyguard and client relationship. It's emotionless. It's just proximity. That's the only reason we feel attached to one another. And I think in the last episode, it's Hawk slowly realizing to himself that, oh, no, I like Yona beyond just friendship. And Yona doesn't realize that yet. And it's like, So yeah. So then Gigan gets the info from Jeha about all this clientele and Kumji and the business of it's going to happen the day after tomorrow, right? So in 2 days, this is all going down. And Jeha's like, we found the store where the women were disappearing at. We got a guy to go in and figure out all the details for us. And so then they pretty much have determined that they don't know how they can notify everybody which ship has the women aboard. Because if they're just searching from ship to ship, that's too dangerous. Something could happen. The women could get hurt. There could be a hostage situation. They need somebody in on the inside. And Jeha makes note that Kumji is greedy. And we saw that he had the band, he had the necklace that had the green jewels on it. And green is usually for jealousy. And so we get that, right? That if there are quality goods, he'll wait until the very last minute to get all he can. So he's definitely going to be still doing business tomorrow. He's not going to leave until the last minute. And that's when Yona makes the announcement that she's going to go aboard the ship. She's like, I'm going to sneak some fireworks into the ship. And from there, we'll notify. That way you guys will know which ship has the women on it. And we can make sure that we get all the other ships out of the way except the one with the civilians. And I love that the dragons and Hawk are like, nope. We don't see Jeha's face at first, but we see Sheena and Kija and Hawk be like, mm-mm. And Jeha's like, huh, okay, interesting. And Hawk is instantly like, don't like this plan at all. No one likes it, actually. But Yona's like, do you all have a better idea? There's no other way to do it. This is the best way. And it's the way we can ensure the least casualties if we do it properly. And I love that they all look so concerned. But Yona, this is like her chance of like her courage, everything. And I like that Hawk outright doesn't say, no, you're not doing this. He says, I wouldn't recommend it. Like, Hawk says, okay, I wouldn't recommend it. And then, of course, Kija and Hawk are the first two to speak up. They're like, no, it's too dangerous. But Hawk's trying to be a little bit more cordial about it, right? And then Yoon's like, I'm against it too. And then Yoon brings up the whole idea about gunpowder. He's like, do you know how gunpowder works? Like, we could blow up the whole ship. And instead of helping people, we can make things worse. Fair enough. And Yoon does have a point. That Yona's not experienced enough with gunpowder. And she's like, and if they find you, they'll kill you. And that defeats our whole thing. And then Hawk makes the comment that they need a firework big enough to signal everybody and that Yona's too small to carry something like that. But she makes the argument. She's like, no, Sheena can see it from far away. We're fine. Totally can work. And Sheena's like, why am I getting dragged into this? And then I like that they're all concerned, but she's like, we don't have time to search every ship. This is the best idea. And if the women reach the Kai Empire, it's too late. So if we're going to make this work, we've all got to contribute. And she's like, this is the way I can help. She's like, I'm not going to be fighting on this ship. I can't be a fighter on the pirate ship. So this is the best thing I can do. And I like that Jeha says nothing. Jeha is not offering any feedback, probably because he's on the same page as her, which I like that. I like that Sheena's just like impartial. Kija's against it. And Jeha, I think, is for it. I think Jeha realizes that she's right. And that's curious because Jeha seems to be the one that wants to go against Yona all the time. But so far, he's the one that's kind of agreed with her the most. So that's a curious dynamic, right? And then Yona's like, let me fight with you. And it ties back to Gigan at the start of the episode. Gigan's like, let me fight with you. This is Yona's version of that too. I love it. I love the pair. And that gets Gigan's attention. She's like, this girl, she was raised far from the world's conflicts. but sometimes she has a seasoned warrior's eyes. She has that fire. I can't believe she's overpowering me. Yeah, she's got the fire inside of her. And then, yeah, Gigan points out, she's like, this is going to be dangerous. Yeah, if you succeed, we're going to be able to help. But she's like, I'm not letting you do this alone. There's too many factors that could go wrong. Someone else has to go. And I love that instantly Hawk and Kija are like, we can do this. And she's like, it needs to be somebody that can pass as a woman. And they both are like, we can do this. I love that. And instantly, she's like, if you're not as beautiful as the other women, you'll be chased off. And they're both like, and Hawk's like, we can do this. To be fair, I know they played up Kija dressing up like a woman and playing it off as a joke. But honestly, though, I think Kija could have passed as a woman if he just, like, did some things differently. I think he could have passed as a woman, maybe. Hawk, no. Hawk is beautiful, but not passing as a woman. And for a second, I thought it was going to be Jaeha, too. I thought they would make, like, Jaeha take his hair down and, like, make himself, like, you know, put makeup on his eyes, like some rouge and blush. And I thought maybe Jaeha could pass, but they're way too tall. They're way too tall. Would not work. And I love that she says, I can't tell if you're not listening or you're just really confident that you'd pass as women. But she's like, I have another brawny volunteer now. Amidst all these filthy men, the only possible candidate is Yoon. And I love that Yoon's like, excuse me. And Gigan's like, yeah, you're sharp. You know how to handle gunpowder. You can also pass as a woman. And then Yoon, I love his response. He goes, it is true that I'm as beautiful. It's true that I'm beautiful when I'm disguised as a woman. But I'm also a handsome young man. And I love if you look in the background, Hawk and Jaeha and Kija are all three like, really? Like, Sheena has no part in this conversation, but I love it. But Yoon's like, we're dealing with an evil lord. No, I'm opposed to this. There's no telling if we'll succeed if I join her. And then Yona's like, yeah, it'll work. Come on. We can do this. And he's like, I guess I have to go. I love it. I love the dynamic. Yoon going with Yona is great because Yoon is, I think, going to be calm under pressure and will help her out. Like, I love that. He says, don't worry. I don't fight losing battles. I love that about Yoon. I love it. It's great. And Yoon does pass off as a really pretty woman. And Yona's so excited by this. So yeah, then we have the scene with Captain Gigan and Yona thanking her. And I love this scene. It was definitely a red flag that something bad's going to go down with Gigan. I don't get good vibes from it. But I love the idea that Gigan and her have this conversation. And she's like, this battle's going to cost us. Like, she's like, it's not going to be easy. She says, I asked for too much for them to go in and not kill anyone. There's probably going to be some of our side killed, but I've asked them not to kill any of their side. So she's like, I'm asking a lot of them. And Yona's like, it's fine. Hawk and the others are there. That's, you know, more than enough. And I like that Gigan says, yeah, that's true. Hawk and the others being there is probably going to be a big advantage to us, but you don't need to waste your own life. Like, be careful. Like, don't just sacrifice yourself because you think you're helping the cause. She's like, once I let you on this ship, you become like a daughter to me. And I love that. I love that Yona's like, I never had a mom. I don't remember her. So, and there's a sense that protective quality that Gigan has, it reminds her of her father, sure. But she's a lot more strict and stern than her father. And so she's like, it kind of reminds me of my mom. And she's like, don't really remember her, but you kind of remind me of what it's like to possibly have a mother. And it's like, Yona, my girl. And I love that little hug that they give, that little embrace. It's so sweet. It gives me vibes. I like want Gigan to be safe, but it gives me like death flags for Gigan. I'm like, would they actually kill her off in this? I think they might. I think they might actually kill her off, and that will be like a motivation for Yona and Jaeha to join her and for them to move forward. I really do. But that image of her like wiping the tear away and hugging her, it's so good. And then, yeah, the lantern flickers just a little bit. Yeah, I get death flags for Gigan, and I don't like it. Not comfortable with that. But then we go to Hawk, and we have Yona coming out of the shadows. She has this, like, new sense of resolve, and there's Hawk bathed in the moonlight. If you're not Hawk sexual at this point watching this series, are we watching the same show? Are we reading the same story? Because, God, of course, Hawk wants to confront her before the end of all this. And I love that she's like, I'm just gonna walk past you. Like, it's fine. Nothing, no problem at all. And he like corners her up against the wall. And I like they squeeze each other's shoulders. And that fiery expression, he's like, how can I convince you not to do this? And she's like, I've got to. And he's like, do you have any idea how dangerous this is? And she's like, yeah, I know. She's like, don't be patronizing to me. Yeah. Why are you always so reckless? Princess. And just him hugging her, he's like, sometimes I wish I could tie you up, like to keep you from going away from him. And I love that blush. She's like, get off of me, no. And he's just hugging her because he's like, this is maybe the last time he sees her. And he's like, he doesn't want to show that affection to her in the form of like an actual hug, because that would be admitting more than he's willing to admit at this point. But that like pushing her up against the wall, it's like his version of a hug. He's like, this is all I can do at this moment. And then she like tells him, she's like, I thought that this was a peaceful and prosperous place, but I was wrong. And she's like, she's saying, you know, I know that you've seen it too, right? She's like, a kingdom without conflict where everyone smiled like my father wanted. She's like, I don't know if the fire tribes in Port Aua haven't changed since my dad. She's like, my dad's ideals were not being fulfilled. And she's realizing that. Like, she's realizing just how bad things were. And that her dad had these idealistic goals, but they weren't getting accomplished, right? And I like this line. I'm not sure if my father was wrong or not, but I've got to try to fight because I'm responsible too. Like, me sitting around and not accepting or acknowledging the conflict is what caused all this to get to this point. So if I don't fight, then I'm just as complicit as my father was in letting this get out of hand. It's great. Like, she's still honoring her father's memory, but she's recognizing there's the cut to Suwon where he's like, you don't know. And there's the cut to Yoon saying, you don't know. Like, these people are calling her out for being ignorant. And she's like, I don't want to be like that anymore. I've never tried to learn what my responsibilities were or even wanted to. But now I have to. That's why I have to fight. So let me go, Hawk. And that moment where his eyes slowly open, like slowly widen, when she's like, let me go, Hawk. Because that's what he's been wanting to get to. He's been wanting to get to that point, I think, where he can let her go, right? He wants to be able to let her go where she can be free of him. And at this moment, she's saying, this is like the first step towards that. She's like, let me go. I can do this. I don't need you to protect me at this point. And Hawk's like, that's what he's wanted, but, right? He's letting her go as the princess. And she just skips off. And I just love he just bops his head against the wall. I love it. Where he like turns back around. He's like, something's wrong with me. I don't want to let her go. But he does. And he's shaking. He's like, why am I shaking? Yeah. I don't know this Princess Yona. Like, this whole time he's had this conception of Yona as someone that needs him, that requires his protection. And that's always been a barrier. He's like, I can't, he's like, if I'm your bodyguard, I can't be your lover, because that is, being a lover and a bodyguard are two mutually exclusive things. So he's like, I don't want to let her go. The bodyguard in me doesn't want to let her go because my job is to protect her. But she's proving that she doesn't need my protection, possibly. And this is something totally foreign to me. But I want to know more. It's like, it's moving past that bodyguard princess stage. And he's like, now, if that's the case and she doesn't need me to be a bodyguard and she frees me from that role, then that opens up the opportunity that I can know her as Yona and not as the princess. He's like, I want to know more. And then that sly look on his face. I want to see the princess succeed. Oh, that sly look where he's like, I want to see her be able to protect herself. Like he said that way back with Yoon doing the archery. He's like, I want her to be able to struggle and survive and be human. And he's like, I want to see her succeed and move beyond just being the bodyguard. And that expression, oh my God. I just want them to be together. I just want Hawk and Yona to be together. And this manga may give it to me, maybe not. But yeah, And so Yoon and Yona, they both clean up good. Jaeha's like, you're cute, you'll nail it. And she's like, I'll do my best. And then of course all the pirates are like, Yoon, you did it. And he's like, I'll be the best wife, actually, because I'm a genius. And then he says that inside Yoon's stash, he has the gunpowder. And he rubbed the powder on the end of a wire. So that's what's going to let the firework off. Okay. And I like that you see, well, that's not Hawk. That's just a patient he's working on, right? Maybe, possibly. I think that's just a patient. But Yoon has the fireworks. And then I love that poor Kija tried. And Sheena's just off to the side with Ao. And Ao pulls off the dress cute, but it's like, Kija, the apples aren't doing it, honey. Nope. Not working. And then, yeah. And then Hawk confronts Yoon. Like he confronted Kija back in the cave. He got with Yoon. And Yoon's like, I'm shaking and I'm scared. Am I pathetic? And Yoon's like, no, I'm shaking. Me shaking is a good thing. That means I know how dangerous this is. And I'm going to be able to keep a level head because I know what's at stake. And I love that line. I've lived more carefully and wretchedly than anyone else. So yeah, I'm proud of it. And I'm going to be able to survive because of it. So don't worry, Hawk. I will not let Yona die. Since I'm going to be there, I'll be able to protect her. And Hawk's like, that's what I wanted to hear. Keep her safe. I like that everyone at this point is slowly getting Hawk coming up to them being like, you're going to keep Yona safe, right? It's Hawk, my dude. And then, yeah. So then they get on the ship, and I like that at the very end, Hawk is just standing out there looking, waiting. So yeah, we've got our mission. We've got our mission. It's all set up. It's all going down next episode. Yoon and Yona are going to get on the ship. Hawk's ready. Jaeha is forming up a plan with Gigan. They're going over it. We'll just have to see what ends up happening. I'm really excited, but I feel for Hawk, but I'm really nervous because it's like, it's not going to go down without a hitch, right? Something's going to happen. So, tension, anxiety, Yona of the Dawn. The final few episodes. So yeah, next episode's episode 21, the 4-episode warning. Which it's not ending. We're gonna read the manga after that, so I'm pretty excited. But I think I'm gonna read volume 5 before I watch episode 21. Right? I think I'm gonna do that. So in the meantime, I hope y'all have a wonderful week. I'm excited to hear your comments down below. Please no spoilers, but I hope y'all have a wonderful week. Please stay safe, take care, and yeah, we'll be back very soon with episode 21 of Yona of the Dawn. Bye.